not go unpunished.
In a time when Jews are under attack,
The question is, are you going to be a sheep or a shepherd?
Rabbi Mo fights back.
When your enemy tells you that he wants you dead, believe him.
Starring Mark Feuerstein, Neil McDonough, with Christopher Lloyd and Dermot Mulroney. May God and your Glock protect you. Guns and Moses. Now playing.
This crime against...
That's our radio spot. It's been playing on radio stations across America. Got a TV commercial. It's been playing. You know, it's an independent movie, so we have a very limited budget. That's why you haven't been hearing those commercials for weeks and months like the studios can afford to do. But in the final few days, we're able to do a little bit of a push. And so that you might have heard that radio spot. You might have seen the commercial on TV. Oh my gosh, the day is here. July 18th. We've been saying this for so long. Nina and I working toward this moment for 6 years. I just want to say thank you, God. Thank you, God, that we have this opportunity. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're here. We're on the field. We're on the on the football field, the baseball field, the basketball court. We're in the game. And we're definitely up against giants. You know, these studio pictures with $50 million, $80 million, $100 million of marketing budget. We don't have anything like that. But what we do have is the support of so many people who are truly interested in the movie. They've seen the trailer at gunsandmosesmovie.com. They're like, that looks like a good movie. They've heard a bit about the story behind the movie. They know that it's a fresh, original character, a movie with traditional values. That is a type of movie that Hollywood does not make normally. This movie could not have been made in Hollywood. And it's just such an enjoyable film. I got an email late last night. The movie opened last night at a bunch of AMC theaters with early engagements. And I got an email last night from a guy named Ari Hoffman, who's a radio host in Seattle. And I was on his show a week ago, one of the many appearances I've done to talk about the movie. And, and he said, it sounds kind of intriguing. He said he was a little bit skeptical. The name is very bold and how, all independent movies, so often they just tend to be not well made. They don't deliver on the promise that they try to make to us. But he said, but it was still intriguing enough that he went. And he went with his wife and he went with a bunch of friends on the very first show that they could go to, right? The pre-opening night on Thursday. And he emailed me later and he said, Sal, this movie's amazing. Wow. I and everybody with me loved it. We had such a good time. He said, this is a great action thriller with actors you recognize and the people you go to shul with, right? He's Jewish, and he says it's like the people you go to synagogue with or you go to church, the people you go to church with, sort of like recognizable characters and people of faith in an action thriller. It's just unlike anything that you've seen before. He loved it. He's going to help us promote it. He just got back to me right away. He wants to get Mark Feuerstein on his show. He's telling people about it in Seattle. Elon Gold, if you're familiar with him, wonderful comedian. He posted our trailer last night to his 300,000 followers. Hillel Fold, incredible advocate for Israel and the Jewish people, doing tireless work. You can see him online. You should absolutely follow Hillel Fold, F-U-L-D. Incredible guy, and he heard about the movie, did a quick interview with me and wrote about the movie and our background, posted on his platforms last night. So many influencers are coming on and supporting the movie, getting behind it. And I know everyone, you're tired of hearing, you've heard about the movie. Let's learn some Torah, Sal. But I know a lot of people in this class are definitely getting behind it and even driving some long distances to go see it. So, let's light up the darkness. And let's see what's going on in the comments. Guy in Ohio, Gordo in Scotland. We're not in Scotland yet, But we get a lot of questions about when will the movie play in Israel, in England, in France, in Australia, Germany. We get constant questions from outside South America. And the answer is it'll get to all those places. The movie will be available in streaming. Right now we're focused on the theatrical release, and later in the year will come the streaming. But of course, if you have a successful theatrical, then all of the streaming will be much bigger and better later in the year. Right now we're focused on theatrical. Joe in the Inland Empire, Lorraine in Texas, Melissa in Great Neck, Yehudit saying Shabbat Shalom to everyone from Florence, South Carolina, Bill in mid-Missouri, Karen in Northern California, Belle, home again after Guns N' Moses excursion in Grapevine, Texas. We loved it, we laughed, well done, Sal and Nina. Off to get my 10,000 steps in, but first, now for something completely different. Am Yisrael Chai. Amen. Thank you, Bell. Yosef in Sierra Nevada. Yehudit wishing us Mazel Tov. Everyone saying Mazel Tov. Francine checking in from New York City. Welcome, Francine. Love to see some new names. Annette from Fort Lauderdale. Deborah from Boynton Beach. Boynton Beach, Florida. I've been in Boynton Beach many times visiting my parents. Adam asking the name of the movie. Guns N' Moses. Guns N' Moses. And you can go to gunsandmosesmovie.com. Nina, please put that in the comments. gunsandmosesmovie.com. You can see the trailer and get tickets. Find out. We're in 78 cities. Kind of, a lot of neighborhoods around some larger cities, but also some smaller places. And people keep asking, well, why aren't you in the 5 towns in Long Island? Why aren't you in Atlanta? Why aren't you? We're in Santa Clara, but we're not in San Francisco yet. The locations we have is primarily what AMC gave us, also some Marcus and Harkins, Lemley, some independent theaters. And this is what they were able to give us because the summer tentpole movies, the Supermans, the F1s, the Jurassics take up so much real estate. So this is where we could begin. This is our foothold. But if people go, if they enjoy the movie, if they then email and text their friends, gunsandmosesmovie.com, and say, dude, you got to see this movie. This movie's great. We want this movie to succeed. It's a big screen movie. I don't say that often enough. It's worth seeing in a movie theater. Yeah, you could wait and you could see it on your TV, but you will be missing out because this is the kind of movie that really plays well on a big screen, in a big dark room, with an audience. People gasp, people cheer, people laugh. It's a thrill ride. It's a thrill ride of a movie, and it is very much worth it to get out to the theater. So if there's one anywhere near you, please get there this weekend. And if not, you can see the list of towns that are there. Send it to other people so that they can see it. That would be great. Okay. Let's go. Very short class today. That's why I feel okay taking some time. I would have done a double daf today, but I literally 10 minutes ago got off doing a podcast, national podcast that is going to be broadcast tomorrow. A guy named John Gordon, The Truth. He goes out across America, which my book publicist arranged literally an hour and a half ago. So it's just things keep happening. But I managed to prepare the short daf that we're going to learn together. But I won't be doing a double daf like I normally would in this situation since it's short. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shakol nihvid b'ro. I've been running so hard I haven't eaten anything today. I had a balance bar at like 8 a.m. and this glass of water. I'm looking forward to having a meal after the class. Okay, we are near the bottom of page 32a. Our daf is page 32 here in Tractate Avoda Zara, the 27th volume of the Talmud. Avoda Zara is the study of the prohibition on idolatry. This is a strong prohibition in the Torah. And this is not just a prohibition on Jews. All humans are prohibited to engage in idolatry. It is an offense to our Creator, to whom all of us owe everything. We owe everything that we have, the air we breathe, the blood in our veins, the food we eat, the fact that we're alive. We owe it to our Creator, and we should say thank you as often as possible. Not only because, then good things will happen to us because our Creator is happy that we thanked Him, but also because we'll just naturally be happier. That attitude of gratitude is healthy. It is absolutely healthy. And again, it's not just because it's healthy that we should do it, because our bodies will feel better. It's just that we will be plugged into reality. Right? In reality, the universe exists because a creator desired it. We exist because our creator desired it. And when we sort of connect with our creator and, say thanks that we're alive, and ask, now what can I do for you? You've, given me certain commandments. You've told me what you want me to do. So as a way of saying thank you, I will be kind to the people around me. I will pursue the truth. I will fight injustice. I will seek to bear fruit in this world, to be productive, to make that contribution that only I can make. And one great way to plug into the reality of the world and connection with the Creator is learning Torah, as we're doing. Okay, so Avoda Zara is the prohibition on the opposite of that, of denying the existence of the Creator, of saying that the reason that things are going to go well or bad for a person is because he's going to propitiate some statue made of wood or metal or stone that represents some force in the world that he wants to beseech to get what he wants. That's idolatry and is absolutely prohibited for all humans. And as we've seen, we need to distance ourselves from any whiff of idolatry. And that's why so many of these laws are a fence around that prohibition to make sure we never come even close to violating this law, this prohibition. It was stated that Shimon ben Guda provided testimony, but the sages did not concede to the ramifications of that testimony. At the end of yesterday, we discussed that, and the Gemara raised a contradiction with regard to wine that comes in the flagons of idolaters. Right, the big concern is that wine of an idolater might have been used as a libation in his idolatry, right, to placate the statue that he bows to. And so we have to distance ourselves not only from the idolater, but even from his wine. So what are the limits of that distancing? That's what we're talking about here. You certainly can't drink wine that belonged to idolaters. And even if we store our own wine on the property of an idolater, it might become prohibited. There's two levels of prohibition, either prohibited to consume it, or even the stricter prohibition, even prohibited to benefit from it, like you could buy and sell it. You could benefit from it without consuming it. Okay, so what's going on here? With regard to wine that comes in the flagons of idolaters, one is prohibited from drinking the wine, but one is permitted to benefit from it. Shimon ben Guda testified before the son of Rabban Gamliel with regard to Rabban Gamliel that he drank from it in Akko, and they conceded to him. Now, this directly contradicts the episode cited above. In other words, if we've learned that it is prohibited not only to drink the wine of idolaters, but even wine that ever came out, they didn't own it, but it was stored in one of their vessels, this flagon, this container, and that's enough to render it prohibited, not only for consumption, but even for benefit. And then we learn a story that somebody who's reliable and reputable testifies that a great sage, who obviously knew the law because he was the Nasi, right, the chief rabbi of the generation, that he drank such wine, that would suggest that there's something wrong in our understanding of the law, right? So either the law is not what we think it is, or this great sage violated the law. But he would not have violated the law. We know that he wouldn't have violated the law in this kind of a thing. So either we have our understanding is lacking what the law is, or our understanding is lacking of what really happened when somebody says he drank that wine. Maybe they made a mistake in the testimony. What's going on? We're trying to reconcile this contradiction. So the Gemara explains, what is the meaning of the sentence? But they did not concede to the ramifications of his testimony, which was stated there in the first account. And the meaning is that the rest of his entire company, i.e. the rest of the sages, did not concede. They didn't say, oh, well, Rabban Gamliel drank that wine, now we can drink it. But his son did concede to him. The son of Rabban Gamliel said, oh, well, my father has a tradition that type of wine is permitted, then I say it's permitted. Or if you wish, say instead that Gouda with the letter Aleph, as stated in the first episode, is discrete, and Gouda with an ayin, as stated in the second account, is discrete. These are two different people testifying about two different events. The two incidents are not referring to the same individual, because the name Gouda is spelled in two different ways. We're talking about two different people giving testimony about two different events. New topic. The Mishna, our Mishna, talking about whether we can drink wine that has been in the possession of idolaters or not. The Mishna further teaches, and hides, right, the hide of an animal, with a tear opposite the heart are prohibited. And the sages taught what is considered a hide with a tear opposite the heart. Any hide that is torn opposite the heart and incised in a manner, and so in a shape similar to an aperture, and which has a trace of coagulated blood on it, this is prohibited, because these idolaters had a practice that they would, I don't know if they killed the animal first or after, but anyway, they would make an incision. They must have killed it first. Then they would cut the animal's chest, reach in, cut out the heart, and then, sacrifice the heart as some kind of a offering to their idolatry. And so therefore, the hide of such an animal that was used for idolatry would become prohibited for Jews. On the other hand, if it was just an animal that was butchered, and as part of the butchering, there was a tear in the hide, in the general area of the heart, that wouldn't mean that the heart was removed for purposes of idolatry. It just means that there was a blemish in the hide, and then it would be permitted for Jews to, just use the hide of an animal that once belonged to idolaters, but we have no reason to suspect that the animal was used for idolatry. Now we're at the top of page 32b. It does not have if it does not have a trace of blood upon it, then it is permitted. And Rav Huna says they taught that a bloodless hide is permitted only in a case where the idolater did not salt it. But if he salted it, it is prohibited. As I say, its salting removed the trace of blood, which would have been the evidence that it was used for idolatry. Now, the Mishnah taught that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, a hide is prohibited only when the tear around its heart is circular. But if it is elongated, it is permitted. That would be the evidence of idolatry versus non-idolatry. So the Gemara notes, Rav Yosef says that Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says the law is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Abaye said to Rav Yosef, if one rules that the law is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, does that mean by inference that the rabbis disagree? Or perhaps there is no dispute and everyone accepts the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel? So Rav Yosef said to him, what difference is there to you whether or not the rabbis disagree? In either case, the law is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. And Abaye said to him, invoking a folk expression with regard to one who learns without achieving understanding, is it simply learn the lesson? Let it be like a song? In other words, is it sufficient to simply parrot the halachic ruling? No, it is necessary to examine an issue, to understand it, even if it does not yield a practical halachic difference. Our Mishnah further taught meat that enters the house of idolatry before it is sacrificed is permitted. Right? So in other words, an animal that entered a house of idolatry where maybe it was going to be used for idolatry, but it hasn't been used that way. Whether it was an animal, it was already butchered, it was meat, but it came into the house of idolatry, so it hasn't yet been used for idolatry, would seem to be permitted. The Gemara asks, who is the Tana that taught this? Rabbi Chia bar Abba said that Rabbi Yochanan said, it is not in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, as if one were to posit that it is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Lazar, this would be difficult. Doesn't he say, when slaughtering an animal, an idolater's unspecified intention is to use it for idolatry? If an idolater slaughters an animal, right? Maybe he's only slaughtering it to cut it up and have a barbecue. Maybe he's slaughtering it in order to make an offering to idolatry. We don't know. According to Rabbi Lazar, we have to assume that it is for idolatry as a stringency, and therefore if the animal has been slaughtered by the idolater, that's it. It's now off limits for Jews because he might have slaughtered it with the intention of using it for idolatry. So therefore, once it's meat, already it's, according to Rabbi Lazar, off limits for Jews, whereas the Mishnah seems to be saying even if it's already been slaughtered, and it has only entered the house of idolatry, but hasn't been used yet, so it could remain permitted for Jews for benefit, obviously not for eating, since it was not slaughtered by a Jew. That would be the contradiction with Rabbi Elazar. The Mishnah teaches, and meat that exits the house of idolatry is prohibited because it is considered as offerings to the dead, i.e. to the idols. So the Gemara asks, what is the reason that it is classified as such? It is because it is impossible that it is not an idolatrous offering, meat that entered the house of idolatry, and then came out of it. So the Gemara asked, whose opinion does this reflect? It is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. As it is taught in a Baraisa, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira says, from where is it derived that an idolatrous offering imparts ritual impurity by means of a tent to an individual or item situated together with it under the same structure, even if they do not come into direct contact? So this is very interesting ruling. Normally, when we're talking about tumas oil, right, tuma of a tent, ritual impurity of a tent, what are we talking about? We're talking about that I and a corpse are under the same roof, right? So a corpse, if I'm in the same room with a human corpse, then I become tameh even if I don't touch it, because we're under the same roof. That's called tuma of the tent, or ritual impurity of the tent. Okay, that applies to a corpse, a human corpse. Another way to, contract ritual impurity is to come into contact with a dead, creeping animal, or a man who's had a seminal discharge, or a woman who's menstruating. There are other sources of tuma, or to come into contact with an object that has come into contact with one of these strong sources of tuma. But in all these cases, if I'm just in the same room with such an object, I don't become tameh unless I come into direct contact with it. But here we're learning that an animal that was used as an idolatrous offering is such a strong generator of tuma, of ritual impurity, that it is like a human corpse, which is the strongest source of ritual impurity. As it is stated, they joined themselves also unto Baal of Peor and ate the offerings to the dead. Psalm 106. This is talking about a terrible incident in Jewish history where some of the Jews practiced idolatry, committed grave sin. Just as a corpse imparts ritual impurity by means of a tent, so too idolatrous offerings impart ritual impurity by means of a tent. So similarly, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira would hold that just as it is prohibited to derive benefit from a corpse, so too it is prohibited to derive benefit from idolatrous offerings. The Mishnah teaches with, by the way, I didn't have enough time to properly prepare, but I'm guessing that Psalm 106, if it's talking about that they, got involved with idolatry to Baal of Peor, then that's probably referring to the incident that we're reading about this week in the Torah, right? So that Balak in last week's Torah portion brought the prophet Bilam to curse the Jewish people. Bilam said, I can only say that which God instructs me to say. God made Bilam blessed of Jewish people, and so he blessed the Jewish people. But he wished that he could curse. He certainly did not love the Jewish people. And then he gave advice to Balak and the Moabites and the Midianites that if you want to attack the Jewish people and undermine them, seduce them, through prohibited sexual practice, and via that to idolatry. And that's what they did. And they were they hated the Jewish people so much that they even submitted the daughters of the nobility to become harlots, essentially, to go seduce Jewish men and entice them to idolatry. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but this is recorded in the Torah that this happened. And this was the incident, right, of the Baal of Peor that we read, right, in the first aliyah of this week's Torah portion, Pinchas, right, where actually Pinchas, at the end of last week's Torah portion, took action when this princess, Cosby, it's Cosby and Zimri. I always forget which is the man and which is the woman. But I'm pretty sure that Cosby is the princess and Zimri is the prince, the head of the tribe of Shimon. But she seduces him. He commits idolatry, and then they get so wrapped up in lust, and whoring essentially that they basically have sex publicly in the Jewish camp in front of Moses and the elders. It's just terrible, terrible affront to the holiness of the Jewish people. Everyone is shocked. And Aaron's grandson, Pinchas, takes a spear and acts as a zealot. This is not recommended by any means by our sages. But in that situation, where God was present and God rewarded Pinchas for taking this action, he killed them both. And that stopped a plague that was instigated by this Midianite and Moabite seduction of the Jews that killed thousands and thousands of Jews in that plague until Pinchas stopped it, right? Until he stopped it. So that was his incident of what they were worshiping, Baal of Peor, which was just mentioned here on this Gemara. So one of those, interesting coalescings of the Daf and the Parsha. Okay, the Mishnah taught, with regard to those going to a festival of idolatry, it is prohibited to engage with them in business, because you might give them something to celebrate when they get to their idolatrous festival. The Gemara notes that Shmuel says, in the case of an idolater who goes to a festival of idolatry, if he is on his way to the festival, it is prohibited to engage in business with him as he subsequently goes and offers thanks before his object of idolatry. Upon his return, it is permitted to do business with him, as what was. He already finished his worship, and refraining from engaging in business with the idolater at this stage will accomplish nothing. Conversely, with regard to a Jew who goes to a festival of idolatry, God forbid, if he is on his way to the festival, it is permitted to engage in business with him, as perhaps he will retract from his plan and he will not go to the idolatrous festival. Upon his return, it is prohibited, since he will cleave to it and go to worship idolatry once again, and we don't want to have business with a heretic, right? A Jew who commits idolatry is a heretic. Now we're at the top of page 33a, getting a little bit of a start on tomorrow night's daf, since we have plenty of time. The Gemara asks, but isn't it taught in a Baraisa that with regard to a Jew who goes to a festival of idolatry, whether he is on the way there or returning from it, it is prohibited to engage in business with him? And the Gemara answers that Rav Ashi said, when that Baraisa is taught, it is in reference to an apostate Jew, who will certainly go to the festival and will certainly not change his mind. And the sages taught with regard to a Gentile who goes to a fair where goods and idols are bought and sold, whether he is on the way there or returning from it, it is permitted to engage in business with him. With regard to a Jew who goes to a fair, when he's on his way there, it is permitted to engage in business with him, but if he's returning from it, it is prohibited. And the Gemara asks, what is different about a Jew that is prohibited to engage in business with him when he is returning? And the Gemara answers that this is in accordance with that which the sages say. He sold objects of idolatry, and therefore money gained from idolatry is in his possession. Since the money in his possession is assumed to have been gained through objects of idolatry, it is prohibited to engage in business with this Jew, for us Jews. And the Gemara challenges, right, we cannot engage in business with this Jew because he profited from idolatry. He's some kind of at least apostate Jew, if not a heretic. And we can't do business with him while he's, holding this money that he gained from a benefit from idolatry. The Gemara challenges this, but with regard to a Gentile, this idolater, also, let us say he sold objects of idol worship, and therefore money gained from idolatry is in his possession. Why is it prohibited to do business only with the Jew? And the Gemara suggests, rather, with regard to the idolater, we say, he sold clothing or he sold wine, but not idols. We can't be sure he sold idols. There's a lot of other business to do at that fair. So the Gemara questions this. Well, then, with regard to the Jew, let us also say that one should assume that he sold clothing or he sold wine, but not idols. And the Gemara explains, if he had only wine or clothing to sell, he would have sold them here instead of going to the fair. The fact that he exerted himself to travel to the fair of the idolaters indicates that he intended to sell idols. We distance ourselves from that. This guy didn't. The Mishnah taught, and with regard to those who are coming from a festival of idolatry, it is permitted to engage with them in business. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says the sages taught this only with regard to a case where those returning are not attached to one another, i.e. they're not traveling in groups. But where they are attached to one another, it is prohibited to engage in business with them, as I say, Rabbi Reish Lakish says, the idolater intends to return to the festival with his companions. This is a gathering of idolatry that's walking. And the Mishna further teaches wineskins and jugs that belong to idolaters and that have a Jew's wine contained in them are prohibited. And the sages taught with regard to wineskins of Gentiles, here we're really talking about idolaters, if they are stripped and free from tar and they are new, they are permitted. But if they are old and tarred containers, they are prohibited because they've had wine of idolatry in them. Nevertheless, if the idolater pitched them and lined them and added wine to them to negate the flavor of the tar while a Jew stands over him, then one need not be concerned for a prohibition because the Jew of the wine will not mix with any sediment or trace of idolatrous wine in that vessel. The Gemara asks, but since a Jew is the one who places wine in these wineskins, why do I need another Jew to stand over him? And the Gemara answers, it is necessary as perhaps due to the Jew's preoccupation with pouring the wine, the idolater will manage to libate the wine and the Jew will be unaware of it. And it's like the idolater will commit some quick and furtive act of idolatry with wine that the Jew ends up drinking, either just because he doesn't care what the Jew does or doesn't do, he wants to worship his idol, or because he actually is maliciously, getting the Jew, sneaking it on him that the Jew participates in his idolatry in order to, promote his religion. Which, by the way, is not so far-fetched. Just yesterday, someone knocked on our door, and when I answered the door, he said, he's handing out books promoting his religion targeted to Jews. That's the point. He was selling his religion to Jews to try to convert Jews to his religion. That's something. You are in the wrong house, pal. And you should not be knocking on any Jew's door. What you're doing is wrong. Sent him on his way. Okay. The Gemara, I'm almost done, by the way, so questions or comments, please get them in now. The Gemara presents an alternative interpretation. Rav Zevid said, actually, it should be as you initially said, that the idolater himself pours the wine. And here, when he pours the wine into the container, he is considered as one who splashes water in clay and does not intend to use it as a libation. Rav Papi said, conclude from the statement of Rav Zevid that with regard to this incident involving an idolater who casts wine into the salt receptacle of a Jew, the salt is permitted, as the idolater has no intention of using the wine as a libation. But Rav Ashi objects to this. Are the two cases comparable? There, with regard to the pitched container, right, a container lined with pitch, the flavor of the wine is going to be lost due to the tar. But here, in the case of the salt receptacle, the flavor of the wine is not going to be lost. Therefore, there is no reason to rule that the salt is permitted. So the Gemara relates a relevant incident. Bar Adi the Arab seized certain wineskins from Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef, placed wine in them for an extended period of time, and then returned the skins to him. And Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef came and asked in the study hall which course of action he should take. So Rabbi Yirmiyah said to him, this is what Rabbi Ami instructed me to do in terms of practical law. One fills the skins with water for 3 days so that the water will absorb the flavor of the wine, and then he pours the water out. And Rava says, in addition, one must pour out the water in them every 24-hour period and then refill them. And once this has been performed, then the wineskins will be permitted because there's no trace of the wine of the idolater in the wineskins that originally belonged to the Jew. It was understood from the above incident that this matter, i.e. that one may fill the wineskins with water for 3 days to render them permitted, applies only to our wineskins that were taken by idolaters. But with regard to their own wineskins, it does not apply, as they are permanently prohibited. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel to Babylonia, to Bavel, he said that Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says both ours and theirs can be rendered permitted in this manner. And similarly, Rav Acha, the son of Rava, thought to say before Rav Ashi, this matter applies only to wineskins, but not to jugs. And Rav Ashi said to him, there is no difference between wineskins and jugs, as both can be rendered permitted in this manner. So presumably the difference is not great enough to create a different result when we think about the absorption that wine would cause into the walls of a clay jug or a ceramic jug versus the walls of a wineskin. That's what I've got for us today. We'll pick it up there Saturday night, right? It's the summer. I'll get on as early as I can. Now we're going to finally start be a little bit earlier each week, but it's still going to be about 9:45 or 10 tomorrow night Pacific. Just 2 comments. Joe, I think that a hide without the blood would prove that the animal had been slaughtered correctly. When the throat was slit, the animal had quickly bled out, leaving nothing to coagulate around and after the fact, leaving nothing to coagulate around and after the fact aperture. That's so interesting, Joe. Right, so that's if we slaughter in the kosher manner. Right? In a kosher manner, we slit the neck and all the blood pours out. The idolater might have a different way of slaughtering. He doesn't care if the blood remains in the animal. He doesn't need all the blood to leave the body. So he might just kill the animal and start carving it up without really draining the blood out of it the way a Jew would. So tough to tell. The important thing to remember is that, if there's no aperture at all, no slit at all around the heart of the animal, then we wouldn't have to worry about that one particular idolatrous practice of removing the heart to offer to their statue. There'd be other reasons why we might be afraid that the animal is used for idolatry, but not that one. If there is this aperture, this slit in the hide around the area of the heart, then we immediately strongly suspicious. And then maybe there's some, wiggle room where there's like, well, it's not the right shape. It's not the right shape. It's not the right size. There's no coagulated blood around it. So maybe we can find a way to not cause the Jew to lose this valuable property, right? A hide, an ox hide, is very valuable, especially to a poor person. So they were looking for a way to let it remain permitted, whereas a strong doubt had been created that it had been used for idolatry, which would render prohibited. Joseph, a lot of what is involved with spycraft and modern political intrigue is moral corruption for the sake of manipulation, blackmailing schemes on a national scale. This is along the lines of baal peor. Baal of peor. That's very interesting. Right? So it's an interesting parallel, Joseph. This idea that they had some kind of idolatrous belief and lifestyle, which maybe they sincerely believed that, this is what their God wanted them to be and to do. Or maybe it was very convenient to adhere to that religion because when you do it, you get to participate in orgies and just, get your rocks off however you want. A religion like that is going to probably claim a lot of adherents very quickly. And then when other people in that community say, what are you doing? That's disgusting. You're exploiting, women, children, who knows what these people are doing. And then the people who are addicted to that kind of behavior don't want to stop. So they're either going to fight, blackmail, seduce to try to get other people who are pressuring them to stop, to stop that pressure, either by killing them or joining them or forcing them. Very interesting observation. Bell, I always point to our mezuzah and tell the witness or whoever that this is a believing Jewish home, and I give them a short mezuzah lesson lovingly, as many of these people have no idea. So very interesting, right? So that's if they're just sort of proselytizing generally. But this guy was targeting Jewish homes. His literature was targeted at Jews. That's why I was polite, but quite firm. My mom, God rest her soul and God bless her memory, she would get very impatient with those kinds of people that were specifically trying to, target Jews for their proselytizing. Bill, dreadfully sorry that happened. Door-to-door proselytizing always strikes me as both uniquely annoying and uniquely pointless. Occasionally, I get, let us say, some well-dressed young fellows who knock on my door trying to teach me about their branch of my own religion. I try to be polite when I tell them I know more than them, that they should go elsewhere swiftly. Very good. Bimheira. The Mehera, right? Mehera, which means swiftly. So that's what I've got for us today. And with God's help, we're together again tomorrow night after Shabbos. May we only hear good news going into Shabbos. May we only hear good news during Shabbos. May we only hear good news after Shabbos. And I'd like to dedicate our learning today to a friend of ours, not Jewish, but there's a real illness in the family. So for Valeria, daughter of Jacqueline, please God, send a healing. Please God, heal Valeria, hija de Jacqueline. May she have a complete recovery from the illness that is very bad. And please God, heal her. And please everybody join me in praying for healing for Valeria, Jacqueline. And may our learning today contribute to that healing. And let us say Amen. All the best. Good Shabbos.